episode 69 of the podcast. This week we're talking about planning for times when a dog is in pain or experiencing discomfort. How can we help a dog prepare for something that may or may not happen in their lifetime? How can we help a dog who's uncomfortable and doesn't have any skills to fall back on? Find out more this week. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. At some point in a dog's life, it's very likely that they'll need human help while they're in pain or discomfort. Now, it may be their owner, the vet, the groomer, a dog walker, a pet sitter, doggy daycare. I mean, really, the list goes on. It could be an injury that the dog experienced, like falling down the stairs. It could be illness that the dog is experiencing. Maybe it's kennel cough and they're just on their last nerves, right? It could be irritation, like itchiness, chronic itchiness that really changes a dog's stress levels. These are times when dogs have an extra difficult time being patient with us. This is when even the most well-behaved of dogs may show some behavior issues. It could be trying to get away from us or avoiding us. It could be growling or air snapping at us. It could be a full-blown panic, with or without biting. But helping a dog during that can be difficult. And sometimes the dog gets injured more or people get injured. So my question for you is pain and discomfort a free pass for behaviors that can hurt people? Is it really in the dog's best interest to avoid teaching them how to handle a little bit of stress? Let's think about that for a minute, right? It's quite a dilemma for many of us. So many people want their dog to trust them and to keep their dog safe from discomfort, from stress, and most certainly pain. I mean, none of us want to have our dogs experience pain. Most owners stop when their dog isn't happy. And on the surface, that seems like the most logical thing in the world, right? I mean, wow, he's, experiencing something uncomfortable that we stop. But it sets a dog up to fail. It doesn't help a dog learn to be accepting of a trusted human's care. The vet and the groomer should not be a dog's first exposure with the experience of, I asked the people to stop and they didn't. Ideally, that should be being introduced at home, when pain and discomfort aren't involved, when it can all be enjoyable. So first, I find out information from my owners, and I have a sneaky way of finding out what my owners are doing at home. I ask the following questions that allow the owners to feel like it's not just them, and to feel like they're in a judgment-free zone. Because it's really important for our owners to just be open with us, and we find out what's going on at home. Any of the dogs that we see who are hard to work with for grooming or vet visits or physical care will usually be revealed when we ask these kind of questions. So I want you to think about these questions as almost like looking into a crystal ball and seeing future behavior. So what are these questions? I'm sure you're waiting, right? All right, question number 1. What does your dog do when they don't want to be touched or they want to be left alone? Most owners will have an answer for this. I know that I do. I know what my dogs do if they don't want to be touched or when they'd like to be left alone. I know what they used to do and I know what they do now, which are different. But it gives owners a chance to tell you what happens at home. Second question, what does that look like? Find out how it plays out. Find out what happens. Like, okay, so what does it look like? Describe it for me. Because most owners will know exactly what it looks like. Third question, how do you respond? This will give you clues that will tell you if the owner turns it into a fight or if they just let go when the dog tells them to. Now ponder that for a minute, because there are two very different responses that happen there. And most owners will, with dogs that have an issue, will fall into one of those two responses. There, of course, is a third response, which is the person who does the everything right. The person who calms their dog down, and their dog very rarely is in a situation where they get stressed by hands, right? But how do they respond? Do they get angry and it just turns into more of a fight? Do they just let go? And that one's really, really common, just letting go. Like, oh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, right? I had a customer do that with their dog the other day when I was at their house. I was like, yep, see, but that there is what we're talking about. All right, so let's get through these questions. Fourth question, how often does it happen? It's a really good question for your owners to think about. Is it rare? Is it daily? I mean, is there a big problem happening here? Is this something that happens a lot? Or is it something that happens so infrequently that they really weren't aware that there was a problem? And many owners don't know that they have a problem at home. So these are the kind of questions that will help them understand if there's a problem or not, right? Number 5, when does it happen? When? That's always a good question. Is it a time of day? That could be medical. Is it an area of their body? That also could be medical. Is it a particular interaction? Something like putting something over their head or picking them up or wiping their feet, something particular on their body or something that we do with them. Is it a particular person? Right? Those kind of things can give us some clues, because the dog that doesn't like having something put over his head is likely to be a little bit weird when we try to put a grooming loop around them. They don't like things over their head. If we know ahead of time, we can address it. So when does it happen is a really good question, so that we can figure out what it's going to be like when the dog is at the vet's or at the groomer's or in other ways working with us. Number 6, what have you tried? I mean, if they're aware that there's a problem, it's likely that they have tried something. They might not have tried anything. They might be looking at you like, well, of course he acts like that. I get that a lot. Like, well, yeah, I mean, he's a dog. That's what they do. But what have you tried is a good question, because then we can find out if they're working on it, so that we aren't making things worse or doing something entirely different. If they're working on it and we want to be on board, they have a good plan and we want to be on board with how they're doing it, and we can all work together, or switch them over to our ideas. Switch them over to what we want to do, right? All right, but what have you tried was question 6. Question 7, what were the results? Did the problem get better, stay the same, or get worse? Plain as day, right? If owners are working on something, they should be able to just honestly tell you, is the problem getting better? Is it staying the same, or is it getting worse? Because then we can help them figure out what might work better. Or tell them, you're doing a really nice job. Let's refine it a little bit more. Okay. Question number 8. This one's a big one too. What do you think your dog will do with us when we don't respond the same way you do? That's been a big one for many of my customers, because it gets them thinking about it. And also, they usually have an intuitive hit. You know, do they suspect that this dog would bite them if they didn't back off when the dog tells them to? Owners will figure that out. They'll be like, well, wait a minute. And many owners have some sort of a story of an encounter where that played out, right? Like when you weren't able to just back off when your dog growled, or you weren't able to just back off the moment the dog said, I don't want to be touched, right? If you actually had to corner him or something and pull him out to take something off of his fur, like they usually have some sort of a story that will guide them to realizing that they have a bigger problem. Dogs need to learn to trust us. They need to learn that our hands are a safe zone. So those are the questions that I ask, just trying to get our owners to think about what the problem is, if there's a problem, but also where it's going to occur, how bad it's going to be, and then we can guide them to some solutions. So the questions again. What does your dog do when they don't want to be touched or they want to be left alone? What does it look like? How do you respond? How often does it happen? When does it happen? What have you tried? What were the results? And what do you think your dog will do with us when we don't respond the same way you do? So in the next part, we're going to talk about some owner homework and some things that we can teach the dog to do so that we can help a dog learn to trust us and be prepared for stressful times. Be prepared if something is stressful or painful or uncomfortable. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes, and tell all of your friends. Here's some owner homework to help prepare a dog for unpleasant and/or painful experiences with the people who care about them. One of those things is to teach your dog that your hands are safe and learn to calm your dog with your touch. Now, that could be your own dog. That could be a dog on your table. It's going to be easier if the people are also doing it at home. And it's actually useful for them because at some point they're going to need to medicate their dog, right? But I want you to be thinking that my hands are a safe zone and my touch should be able to calm my dog down. It's really important. Safe doesn't mean pain-free or free of discomfort, but it does mean gentle and loving handling. It should be kind of a we'll get through this together feeling. And I wish that we could make a contract with a dog that says, I'll never do anything to hurt you. I mean, I think we all feel that way, but instead, the contract I made with the dogs is, I'll never hurt you to be mean. It's still a message of trust. My own pets have all been comfortable coming to me when something hurts, something unpleasant is going to be happening. They feel safe with me doing painful and uncomfortable things. And my customers' animals learn to trust me this way too. But in my own pets, definitely. And because they feel comfortable in my hands, they are much better about like, okay, we're going to get through this together. And someone else is able to do that too. It's not that they're going to be perfect if, the neighbor's kids come over and try to, clip a toenail or something. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is expert care and home care with a handful of people that your dog should feel comfortable with their touch. So how can we help a dog learn that our touch is calming without causing any pain or discomfort? Right? How can we prepare them for pain and discomfort and the kind of things that we would need to do without causing any? So I ask my owners to start that out during play. Something pleasant is happening, they're playing, good things are happening, and while the dog is being silly, help the dog learn how to switch gears by getting your hands on them and using your hands to calm them down. Get your hands on them and help them calm down. The game they were playing doesn't start up again until the dog gives an effort to settle down a bit. Right? It doesn't necessarily mean that the dog has to stop and the game is over and the dog has to lay down on their side but just something that helps them shift gears. In the beginning, it can be as simple as just not trying to get away from your hands. Later, it can be being picked up or handled in a particular area, something that's much more difficult. But keep it easy in the beginning. Keep it as part of play. Play, relax into my hands. Play, relax into my hands. And make it really obvious when relax into my hands is over. Like, okay, we're going to play, we're goofing off. All right, let's just relax a little bit. Yeah, you need to calm down. Nice. Okay, now you can go ahead and play again. The reason is that even though there's no pain or discomfort involved, for some dogs, being asked to calm down from play can be mildly frustrating, but not particularly mean, right? We're not torturing them, right? But we do have to help them learn to switch gears to someone needs to do something with me, on me, around me, and I need to switch gears. By doing it this way, it's a little bit frustrating, maybe, but very quickly just becomes something that we do. It could be a little bit stressful when we don't want it to be. We want to make it pleasant because the goal is for the dog to learn how to switch from what I want to do to what you want to do. It's a little bit of self-control. It's a self-control game that owners need to play with their dogs, but we can also do it a little bit too. So for instance, when I'm grooming a puppy and I have them on my table, there's lots of silly talking kisses and stuff. And then there's let's relax. My hands are on them, slow, deep breath, and we relax a little bit. And then it's like, hey, that was really good. All those silly little noises that we make. But that's even just one little step toward, okay, learn to relax with me. learn to calm down with me. So the dogs that I groom, I really like the fact that they've learned to trust me, even if it's something unpleasant, right? Because unpleasant is going to happen. I groomed one of my senior dogs today, and I mean, she's still with us. Every single time we make another appointment, we're wondering if she's going to make it, but she's still with us and we're grooming her, but she's blind, entirely blind. She doesn't even have her eyes anymore. Getting a little bit deaf, definitely shaky, and I can still calm her in my hands because we have this long history together that even if she's shaky, even if she starts to get a little bit nervous, I can calm her down in my hands again. And maybe not everybody can do it. I guess sometimes they've had a little bit of trouble calming her down, but she knows me. She might not be able to see me and hear me, but I know she knows my scent. She definitely has a response to me, and I get my hands on her. All right, let's calm down. And especially at this age she's at, it is unpleasant. Grooming is unpleasant. You know, and she just wants to lay down and go to sleep, but she refuses to lay down on the grooming table. I'm sure you guys have all seen that. Trainers, you might not be aware that there are a lot of dogs out there that are just insist that nope, I'm one of the kids. I can still stand on a grooming table. Yeah, she just will not lay down on the grooming table. Sometimes I can get her to sit, and that's perfect, but it's pretty rare. So she's stressing herself out. She's putting weight on her legs longer than she's used to, and she needs help calming down. And I find that across the board with my customers, even when occasionally I'm the one who helps hold veins for blood drawing. One of my customers has an in-home vet, and a couple times we've just synced up our appointments so that I get the dog groomed and then she comes over and we draw blood because the dog will be fine for me for blood drawing. So it's not about causing stress and fear. It's about preparing them for stress and fear and unpleasantness and pain because it's fair to the dog. We need to prepare them. They need to know that, okay, I'm in a safe place. When I'm in your hands, I'm in a safe place. I'm going to give you a few more examples. Years ago, one of my kitties, now I taught my cats this too. I've worked with lots of different types of animals. I just decided at one point in my life where I'm like, okay, I can't be everything for everybody. So I'm focusing in on the dogs. But Mr. Paint Kitty, his markings on a horse would have been a paint. So he's Mr. Paint Kitty, was really up there in age, and two teeth that had gotten loose, and they were kind of bothering him. They were kind of preventing his mouth from closing properly. And we knew he had a heart murmur. He's got some other issues. At this point, he was getting pretty old. I think he was about 17 at this point. And we used local on his gums and just pulled those two wiggly teeth. He trusted me to let us into his mouth to pull out some wiggly teeth. And my vet wouldn't have tried it with anybody else, but she knew me, trusted me, and he was fine for it. He was fine for it because he trusts me. When something scary is happening, he wants his mom. Right? My dogs are like that too. Something scary is happening. If I get my hands on them, it's like, thank goodness, okay, everything's going to be okay. Now, you might think that that's because of a particular bond with my animals, but really it's because it's something we practice pretty often. So when I asked the question in the last part, what does your dog do when they don't want to be touched or when they want to be left alone? I think it's okay for dogs to not want to be touched or to want to be left alone. It's just a matter of them feeling comfortable if we have to override that. So sometimes we have to work on overriding that. Like, I can't just let you off the hook right now, buddy. I need to check your foot. Okay? Times when that would come in, because I know, like I said, there are a lot of people out there who will just let go. Oh, no, we're not going to continue. We're just going to let go. And I understand why and the thought behind it, but let me give you one example. So you're trimming a dog's nails. Dog jumps around, gets squirrely, which is when many dogs get quicked. They don't get quicked because they were holding still. It's pretty rare that a dog gets quicked because they were holding still. They were already being silly or did something, and that's when an accident happens. But we can't just stop because that nail's bleeding, right? We need something that helps a dog switch gears and like, okay, let me get the quick stop. Let me help you with your boo-boo toe. Boo-boo toe needs help, right? We need to help them switch gears and to feel comfortable with us. And if we do that through play, if we do that when something pleasant is happening and they just are now experiencing, I was super, super happy and now I'm differently happy, or I'm a little bit less happy. Now, that doesn't mean as soon as the dog starts to play, like you come home from work, the dog's been home for 8 hours, and you walk in and just insist that the dog calm down in your hands, because that's kind of unfair. Like, play with your dog first, get him a little bit tired, but help him to calm down. And it's something core to what I teach my training customers. And with my training customers, we go through a wide variety of different skills like that. But it's a little bit of self-control. Like, okay, I need to switch gears. I need to think, even though what I really want to do is play. It's about what the dog wants to do and spending some time saying, oh, this is what my owners are doing with me right now. And we don't have to cause pain to do it. And if something painful does happen in the future, or something unpleasant, or something they simply wish to avoid, right? Now we're a trusted source of touch. Trusted source of touch. So think about that, right? Like, oh, that's hands on me. And I know I've kind of gone a little bit long, but the other example I have for you is my neighbor's Chihuahua. In the last couple months of his life, needed insulin injections twice a day. And that was very new for him. And I was talking to her out in the yard and found out that they were having a twice a day fight about it. So we worked on it, and he got to a point. I did it for a week, but you don't have the opportunity to say, well, we're not going to give you those shots, right? So we worked on it, and we had to give him twice a day shot, but we were able to help him along with it. And by the end of that week, he was like, all right, come on, pokes and cheese, and it's not pleasant, but let's do the thing so I can get my cheese. Because it's that struggling that he was doing that was the scary part. Not really the needle. The needle wasn't really the scary part. The scary part was being held and being scared and not knowing what was going on and the stress of it all between the two of them, because what owner is really comfortable giving an injection to their older dog anyway, and a tiny, tiny little dog at that, So he was able to do that, and he was my buddy. He'd still come over and say hi to me when we were outside. These are my next door neighbors. Like, hey, Nikki, and he'd come running over like, oh, hi, even though I was the one walking over and giving him his insulin. So trusting and calming down in our hands, right? That's something that bonds us, that's helpful. And if we do it during play and we're able to take a dog who's all super jazzed up, happy, and calm them down in our hands, then maybe when they're super jazzed up, scared, they have some skills to fall back on. The weekly action step this week is to start asking your customers questions to find out if they are allowing their dog to tell them it's time to stop, because we can give them some homework so that their dog learns to trust them and to trust touch. If you'd like more information, you can find me at Chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group, Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast, or the Facebook page, Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you.